All right. Welcome back. We're here with, another episode. We're on a Friday for the first time in a while. Mainly because 4th of July is tomorrow. And, here in America, we love our fireworks. My neighbors really like their fireworks. So just to avoid any of that, avoid any other problems, of course they'll still be letting off some tonight anyways. Because I live in one of those places where, you hear fireworks starting like July 1st. You hear fireworks every night leading up to the 4th, and then even like the few days after. Doesn't matter that they're all illegal here. Yeah, that's never stopped anybody. So we're back. We got a lot of gaming news today. We got, kind of like last week, we have a story from all three of the major companies. And guess what? It's all bad news except for Nintendo. Things are going well for Nintendo. Meanwhile, everybody else is shitting the bed and, shooting themselves in the face. Of course, if you ask the grifters, they'll blame Nintendo for everything, say Nintendo caused all of this. They deal in outrage. As I left in a comment on TikTok the other day, they trade blood for outrage. And that's exactly what they do. But no, everything's going great for Nintendo, and anybody who tells you otherwise is fucking lying. Because they just want you to be mad. They want you to be angry, because that's how they get your money, that's how they get your views. So we'll talk about all that. For WIBE, I did not watch Supergirl. I know I said I was going to, kind of like I have been saying for the past few weeks. But when push came to shove, I was just busy this week. I didn't have the time, so I was just like, fuck it, I'll do it next week, or I'll do it later. I've just been busy. I've been busy. We got two things, and that's it. Two small things. I don't know. This is one of those things where we could go for like 10 hours, talking about all this new stuff, or we could go for, 10 minutes. It all really depends on how we play it. We're definitely beating Specter Torment. If I had to guess, it's going to take us maybe like another hour. Not that much at all. And then maybe we'll start King of Cards. I think we can maybe get through the first world in King of Cards. Maybe. I don't know. Do I want to do the Joust stuff? I don't know. So that's what we're working on. But before we get into any of that, we do actually have something else we got to do. Pokemon. Hey, guess what? It's the first of the month. And that means there's a new Pokemon pack. This new one is called Everyday Wonder. I've opened up a few. I think I've opened up maybe 6. So I got a free one to open up. And then we'll open up a few more after that. Let's see. Anything? It's a Muna. Muna? I always said it Muna, but I've heard Muna before. Scrovit, a kid's room. And it's a Jigglypoof. Look at that. It's jiggly. It's poofy. Are you stupid? What is that? That's Vladimir Pokemon Designer? Is that what they called him? It was something like that. Vladimir Pokemon Namer. He's jiggly. Is poofy. You stupid? And he just crushes your head like a watermelon. Collect 1 star card. Alright, so there's our boring packs. Now we gotta open up the lot of packs. We'll open up, standard 20. I know, Hisuian Zoroark is in this pack, so that's pretty cool. It's a Pikachu. Now, I did actually manage to complete the last set. I don't even remember what it was called. I completed it on, Sunday? And the new pack came out on Tuesday. So I barely finished the last pack. And we'll see with this one. Yeah, there's Hisui and Zoroa. Oh my god, I think that's my 3rd ever gold card. I think I have, Arceus, and I have, a Pokeball. or something like that. Oh, that Rockruff was cute. Oh, and there's Megas. I did not know there were Megas. I have no idea who that is. But yeah, and we'll talk about fucking Sony here in a minute. I gotta open up some Pokemon packs first. I did get a pop filter between this week and last week. I know last week I talked about it. No, I don't. I sadly do know who EDP is, but if that's the person who did that. Yes, I'm old. Sue me. I hate that I know who, like, Clavicular is. Because everything I've learned about that guy is completely against my will. Okay, we got a few things there. Yeah, look at that. Now we're really filling it out. Because that gets us over halfway. But yeah, I got a pop filter between this week and last week, so hopefully that fixes some of the popping. Because I re-listened back to the Supergirl part last week, and oh boy, was it bad. It didn't help that we were saying P a lot last week. That's just kind of how it turned out. Okay, Sparkle's in like pack 8 and 10. Ooh, Milotic. I've never actually used Milotic. I've somehow managed to stay away from Kivik, keep off my feet, and literally all I know. He's one of those guys, he's kind of like Elon Musk. He's a 3 who puts all his effort into trying to be attractive, only to end up a 5. And then he's like doing all these like crazy regimens and that are slowly killing him. Like he probably won't live another like 10 years. And like I said, everything I've learned about him has been against my will. But good, stay away from people like that. They're all a bunch of assholes. But yeah, so Milotic. I have always wanted to use a Milotic, but I never have. They're just such a pain in the ass to get, especially in like the older games, and then evolving them as a whole process. And so as a result, I've never actually used one. Oh my god, look at that. Oh, it's beautiful. I love the second Diancie. Oh, that looks so nice. Yeah. And there are shinies in this? Of course there's shinies in this pack. They put shinies in all the packs. Okay, we got some good stuff there. Yeah, that Diane. Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful card. Okay, we walked away with some good stuff. You know, getting closer to completing everything. If I can get within 10, that'd be very nice. That's all the fighting types completed. Yeah, look at that. We're a little more. I'm a little more than 10 away. I'm 12 away. That's not too bad. Got a lot of these collections done. I'll take it. I will take it. Let's see. Anything in the Wonder Pick? We're looking for EXs. Not Tapu's. Ooh, that Piplup's cute. I only know like 3 of those people. Well, and I know who FaZe is, but I never really watched FaZe. Again, I watch a lot of the old gens, you know. I'm still watching the Yogs cast 20 years later. Has it been 20 years? It's probably coming up on it. Yeah, I already got a Wonder Pick from that. Wow. Yeah, I just watch them and Scrapman and oh god, who else have I been watching this year? I don't fucking know. I know there's other people. Alright, I want to look at my gold card real quick just to see like how many. Is there a way to sort this by rarity? Maybe like that. Rarity. Okay, so I have a Munchlax, an Arceus, the Eevee bag, and the Celebi. I thought I had a Pokeball as well, but I definitely remember the Arceus and the Eevee bag. I don't remember the Celebi. This is from Pulsing Aura. I don't remember getting that at all. The Arceus was from Triumphant Light, and the Eevee is from Eevee Grove. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I'd say that was pretty successful. All right, let me boot up Shovel Knight real quick. Give me a second. And we'll hop right over there and get started with that and then start talking about all this Sony bullshit. Oh my god, is there some Sony bullshit to talk about? Oh god. All right, there we go. Should have that pulled up. See, we don't even know that yet, if they're going to be selling empty boxes. We don't even know yet. That's the other thing, is there's a lot of uncertainty. And we'll talk about it. We will talk about all of it. All right. There we go. Shovel Knight. And we'll pick up right back where we left off. Okay. All right, let's go talk to Manny. Oh, shit. Come on. There we go. Oh, fuck. Okay, I think we go. Oh, fuck, it's Baz. Do we not fight Baz in this? It's been a while. Do we just not fight Baz? I guess not. Okay, well, fuck me then. We don't... It's been so long. It has been so long since we've done this. What you gonna do? I know there's a secret back there. Alright, let's get into gaming news, shall we? So, where we left off, or where we were... So, we have a Nintendo story. We have one Nintendo story, that being Splatoon Raiders had its direct. I want to talk about all that. And since that was the first story of the week, we're going to talk about that first. And then we'll get into all the Sony stuff. You know, are they going to be selling empty boxes? You know, what does the death of physical games mean? What does this mean for Xbox as well? Because I've seen a lot of people saying Xbox should clap back on this in the same way that Sony clapped back on Xbox back in the day. But Sony hasn't clapped back on Xbox. So that does make me suspicious. Another thing is we do have some Xbox stories, because guess what? The Xbox layoffs are still going on. Xbox is still planning on laying off potentially, I want to say, over 1,600 people. That's a lot of fucking people. So we'll talk about all that. We'll have more information on that next week. Like, this is a story we've been talking about since like the second week of June, and we're going to continue talking about for the next few days. Huh. I don't think I've seen that yet. When am I going to get guests? I don't know, when people actually start watching the podcast, because so far you're the only one. That and like the 3 people on YouTube. And that's it. Yeah, nobody cares about this show. I've got plans. Oh boy, do I. Okay, I remember this. This is the secret layout. Alright, so let's start off with Splatoon Raiders. I do post clips on TikTok occasionally. I actually had my biggest TikTok in a while over the past week. I'll talk about it later because it's related to one of the other stories. But I actually did have a pretty big TikTok by my levels. Like, by the levels of large TikTok creators, like, it didn't break 1 million or anything. But, like, comparable to my reach, it actually did do pretty good. I love it. The song has been stuck in my head all fucking week. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to start with Splatoon Raiders. That's the big one for Nintendo, and it's the only Nintendo story we have this week. So we're just gonna do that, and then we'll talk about everything else. So going into the Splatoon Raiders Direct, I'll be honest, I was not that hyped. Like, Splatoon Raiders was definitely one of those games I was going to be buying just based on the principle that I'm a huge Splatoon fan. I actually want to replay all the Splatoon games. I think after we do Shovel Knight, we're going to play all the Splatoons again. But as I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick up Splatoon Raiders. But I'm not like actually like super excited for it. Nothing they had shown off in like the one video they showed off of the game had really excited me that much. I was like, okay, yeah, this looks fine. This Splatoon Direct was fantastic. They really got into the nitty-gritty of this game and made it look so much better. I am now way more interested in Splatoon Raiders than I was even just a week ago. Like, I'm genuinely excited now. Whereas a week ago, I was like, yeah, that's something I'll play. I'm sure I'll have a good time with it. But now, I'm actually very interested. So, of course, we already knew, you're on the Spiralite Isles, which is this varied environment. You've got volcanoes, you've got jungle, swamp, forest. You've got all these different regions, and they're filled with salmonids. They've got these dens swarming with these salmonid creatures. And, it's the ones that we already knew about from the game, as well as a bunch of new ones that we hadn't seen before. One of the things we found out early on in the Direct is that there's going to be dungeons, or at least there are stages that have sub-levels in them, which if you've ever played Pikmin 2 or 4, they kind of look like the caves from Pikmin 2 or 4, which that's very exciting. I think that's super interesting. And there are levels, that you can replay multiple times, and you can play them at like their default difficulty, but then they have like an extra spicy difficulty that has a different objective and harder enemies. And yeah, it all looks very good. Of course, we have the lesser salmonids we all know about. You know, your small fries, your little guys, your blorbos, all that stuff. Because I had the idea and I had to do it before somebody else did. That's why I did it on TikTok. I thought it was such a good idea that I had to do it before somebody else did. So we got those. We have the boss salmonids. All the bosses return. The only one we haven't seen yet is the umbrella one. Yes. Oh, yes, I was first. I actually saw somebody else posted it on Reddit. Somebody reposted my video on Reddit. And, like, luckily they credited me for it. But yes, I definitely was the first. But yeah, all the boss salmonids return. But we haven't seen the umbrella one yet. But I guess on, like, the Japanese website or in the Japanese stream, they mention it or they show it or something. So all the bosses are back, as well as we have some new bosses. We have the flying one, which previously we had speculated that the flying one threw out toxic mist. No, instead it throws out this, like, bomb that spins around and creates an air current. And if you hit it with your ink, you can use that air current to float up into the air. That's kind of cool. I like that. You know, it adds variety to movement. So that's the first one. The other one is the smoker. So the smoker does seem to do more the toxic mist thing, but it also provides a shield. So the enemies who walk into the smoke get shielded, and you do far less damage. It goes from, like, doing, like, 85 damage per shot down to, like, 5 damage. It is a pretty big defensive buff. So that's nice. We see a bomb salmonid who, you know, he walks up, he explodes. I think that's a lesser one. There's also the sprinkler one. If you ever played Side Order, there's that sprinkler enemy. I can't remember any of the Side Order enemies. Their names are all Italian. And it's one of those, but it's a salmonid. That looks scary. One of the ones that did change is the flyfish, the one that shoots missiles. You no longer have to throw bombs into its basket to defeat it. Now, you can just hit it in the center. So it's got a small hitbox, but you can now just hit it with any weapon. That is so nice. Oh my gosh, that is so nice, because those enemies suck. They are the worst, they're the hardest thing to deal with. Even having, like, one of the weapons, like the Grizzco Slosher, doesn't help that much. Spider-Man Homecoming. It's good. Spider-Man Homecoming is good. Michael Keaton does a fantastic job. And then, so the other new thing with salmonids is we have seasoned salmonids. So these are salt-covered salmonids that take the existing bosses, at least bosses we've seen so far, and just makes them harder. So we've got a salted salmonid that is, you know, the armored one. And he just has more armor. He's got a grind wheel in front of it. We've got a boss salmonid that is the steel eel that is just very long. It's like a steel eel that's 3 times as long. We have the fire hose one that's like 3 times as tall and has 3 lasers. The bomb one seems to be extra long. The salted salmonids just look like the normal ones, but they're a lot stronger. They take more hits. They do more damage. And I like that. And I hope there's ones that we haven't seen yet. I do kind of hope there's even another, like, an extra seasoned that are even stronger. But so far, everything we do see looks nice. Yeah, there's a lot here. They're not just taking normal salmon run. They really are expanding things, which is what you'd want. They talk about the tanks. So one of the big things in this is, whereas in most Splatoons, There are one, maybe two tanks. I want to say in Splatoon 2, the Splattershot Jr. had a bigger tank. But outside of that, there's really only one tank. This game, there's going to be 3 different tanks. There's a speed tank, which, you know, moves quicker, it fights faster, it can evade attacks better. There's a power tank meant to overpower enemies and tackle swarms head on. And then there's a tactical tank, which is for more strategic battling. All that seems really interesting. I like that you're able to more customize your build, that each of the tanks use different gadgets. So there are different gadgets for each of the tanks. We got to see a lot more of the gadgets. And yeah, like so far we had seen like the turret and the whirlipede thing. And now we get to see like, hey, there's a bubble one, but you can throw out like 8 bubbles with enough upgrades. You can upgrade the gadget so like the turret has like toxic mist that shoots out of it. The whirl can shoot like multiple whirly bits. You know, some do look better than others. I'll be honest, a lot of the movement ones for the speed tank don't really do it for me. Like that's like being able to like do a quick jump forward or a quick sidestep. I don't really need that stuff. Like I'm definitely more interested in the power and tactical tanks. But if I've learned anything from playing Side Order, those varieties are very interesting. And it's a lot of fun to play with new layouts and new weapons that you don't normally use. Because like in Side Order, I would have thought I would hate the bow and the sniper. I love the bow and the sniper in Side Order. In fact, I loved the bow so much that I started using it in online battles. So it really does just all depend. We get to see some of the hideout ship. You know, you can build and upgrade your weapons, build and upgrade your gadgets. You know, depending on what you're doing with Frey, Shiver. And then Big Man is your lore keeper. So he keeps information on all the weapons, he keeps information on all the enemies, stuff like that. There are sunken scrolls in this game, so you'll be able to go out and collect sunken scrolls and whatever that does, you know, whatever lore we're going to find out. I know they showed off 1 or 2 in the trailers. I'll be honest, I didn't read it. It's kind of one of those things where it's like the less I know going into it, the better, I think. I guess they talk about how every weapon from the base Splatoon is going to be in this with like over 100 weapons, which I do not think there's over 100 weapons in the default Splatoon, but I mean, I guess maybe? I don't know anything about it. Don't use AI. AI bad. We get to see outfits. You know, Splatoon is a multiplayer shooter that actually has customization. Like, I feel like every other multiplayer shooter, oh, you want to customize your character? We'll give you some basic coloring, but if you want anything good, you gotta put in money for microtransactions. Yes, there are, but also no, there isn't. Like, AIs, especially these fucking data centers. Data center should be illegal. Yeah, no, data centers should be illegal. And I give more credit to companies that are outlawing data centers and outlawing those flock cameras. Like, every state should be outlawing data centers and flock cameras. Especially in, like, urban populations and cities, you know, like Utah, where they're in a drought. And yet they're trying to use up all the state's water and then just fucking lying. Surveillance cameras to spy on people. That's what flock cameras are. They spy on cars and license plates. They track you. It's evil shit. And they're in every town in America. And they should just be illegal. But yeah, no, Splatoon is one of those few shooters that actually has customization. It's like Splatoon in Borderlands, and that's kind of it. Every other shooter, if you want customization, you got to do their stupid fucking microtransactions. And yeah, even though this is a single player game, mostly, there is a lot of customization here, which I do like. And I do like the outfits. We found out that there are amiibo outfits, and some of the amiibo outfits look better than others, but I do think they all look pretty good. They talked about difficulty options. So there are 3 difficulty options in the game. The easiest is Tourist, which I've already seen. Invest in the Tourist image right now. Because, you know, Tourist and LARPer are 2 words that are on the rise. And so, yeah, invest in that Tourist image now. But it's a mode that's easier and made for a more casual adventure and for people who care about the story. Like, they specifically highlight it's for people who care about the story, which I think is interesting. There's a Raider difficulty, which is the standard experience. And then there's the Survivalist, which is for veterans and challenge seekers. Personally, I usually just play on the default difficulty, but I see why people want the harder difficulties. The big thing is that on the harder difficulties, the only thing that changes is how much damage the enemy does. That's it. That's the only thing that really changes. Cameras are good for safety in cases and damage goes in quiet. So then... Yeah, no, and these flock cameras are being used by police officers to stalk women. Like, oh, my ex-girlfriend broke up with me, so now I'm going to use the flock camera to pin her license plate and find out where she's going every hour of the day. There's been multiple stories just like that. So yeah, this is all spying, surveillance bullshit. I'm completely against these flock cameras. I'm against red light cameras as well. Yeah, oh yeah, and totally body cams, and it should be illegal for a cop to turn off a body cam. They're not always on duty as well. Like, they're doing this off duty. And just they have access to the database. Splatoon Raiders has multiplayer. So while it is a single player game, you are able to play it with up to 4 of your friends, which is good. But then also, let's say you get to a level where you're having a lot of struggle, you can actually call for help, and another random player will be able to drop in and help you out. And you can also go and help other people out. I think it's supposed to be like, I've never played Monster Hunter, but I've seen this game compared a lot to Monster Hunter. Personally, I think more like Dark Souls. That's the comparison I know. But yeah, it's kind of doing the same thing. Red light camera. A red light camera is set up at an intersection and just watches for anybody who's like going over the speed limit, or, you know, who runs the red light, and just immediately writes them a ticket. I think that should be illegal. I feel like unless it is an actual officer writing you a ticket, a computer should not be able to write you a ticket. And it's not helping, it's literally just charging poor people more money. Because anything that is just a fine is not an actual punishment. It's just something meant to discourage poor people and doesn't actually, you know, contribute to society in any way, shape, or form. Because you gotta remember, police are just armies, occupying armies organized by the controlling body in order to regulate the disenfranchised. I definitely got that quote wrong. Go watch Dimension 20. Alright, I keep getting off topic here. But yeah, all the multiplayer stuff in Splatoon looks fantastic. The call for help thing is one of those things that hopefully I will never need, but knowing that it's there, I'm glad it is there. And it also would, in theory, be nice to go in and help other people out. People who actually do need the support, being able to go in and be like, oh yeah, you know, I want to support them. I want to help out people who need it. So yeah, everything looks good with Splatoon Raiders. We did find out, so they show off a trailer at the end which, you know, it's not really a story trailer, but it just highlighted a bunch of different clips from the game. And at one point we see an arcade game, which if you ever played Splatoon 1, way back in the day of Splatoon 1, there used to be a thing where you could, while you were waiting in the lobby between matches, you could play basically Doodle Jump. You could play Splatoon Doodle Jump. And it was a lot of fun. And it's one of those things that was like one of the benefits of the Wii U gamepad that just kind of went away when the Wii U died. But it looks like Doodle Jump, or Splatoon Doodle Jump, I don't remember what it was actually called. It is coming back. And we found out on Twitter today that you can use the materials you collect in the game to build an arcade machine in the secret hideout and play some nostalgic games. And that's really cool. The main takeaway from everything we've seen of Splatoon Raiders is I know some people were worried that this was just going to be some smaller spin-off game, that there wasn't going to be that much content here. And no, this is a fully fledged $60 game. This game seems to be packed filled with content. And it's only $50. And you know what I fucking hate about Nintendo grifters? Is the fact that they say that games are too expensive. So Nintendo listens and is like, okay, we'll, you know, regulate the price of our games and we'll charge less for some games. Awesome. Sounds great. However, then the grifters come in and be like, oh, well, why are you only charging $60 for this game? What's wrong with it? You know, why is it so cheap? Like, you bitch and moan that games are too expensive. And then when games are too cheap, you complain that there must be something wrong with it because you're selling them for so cheap. This is what I say. Grifters don't actually care about Nintendo. They don't care about the games. They don't care about Xbox, Sony, PlayStation, Microsoft. Valve, they don't give a fuck about any of that. They trade blood for outrage. They just want to be angry. That's all they care about. That's why you should never listen to these grifters. There are people who still a year later believe that every game on the Nintendo Switch 2 is a game key card. Let's say you buy Donkey Kong Bonanza. If you put that cartridge in the console, you have to download the game off the internet, and the cartridge is only a game key card. A year after the console's release, there are still people who believe that misinformation. Because some people don't care. They just want to be angry. They just want something to be outraged about. Never listen to the grifters. And like with everything horrible going on in the gaming industry right now, Nintendo's fucking knocking it out of the park. Splatoon Raiders looks great. And you'll never hear enough people talk about it because they just want to be angry at Nintendo. What does this have to do with us Knight with a shovel? We'll fight him eventually. We'll fight him eventually. Actually, no, we didn't. We fought the knight with the shield. All in due time. No, he's a Specter, and he's tormented. Tormented by what? His sins. And so, let's talk about PlayStation, shall we? So, we found out on July 1st that PlayStation, as of January 2028, will no longer be making physical discs for their consoles. Now, what does this entirely mean? Outside of the fact that they're no longer making physical games, there are so many questions up in the air about this. We can speculate on a lot of things, such as, this does mean that for the PS5, there will be no more physical games. But we can also assume that whatever the PS6 is, which Sony doubled down earlier in the week on like Monday, that the PS6 is coming out next year. So I think it is pretty safe to assume that the PS6 will not have any physical games. It will not even come with a disc drive. Because currently for the PS5, they sell a version of the PS5 with a disc drive and a version without a disc drive. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that the PS6 will just not have a disc drive option. It will only be a digital device. Now, the reason Sony said they're doing this, and yeah, you are right about GTA. It will not have a physical disc. It is just a code in a box. Which people are selling that code in a box on eBay for $130, and people are actually paying for it, even though there is no shortage of codes. So the reason Sony says they're doing this is that they claim this is the natural direction for Sony Interactive Entertainment to adapt to consumer trends as the general preference for digital media significantly outpaces physical discs. So what the fuck does that mean? Well, as I learned from Jason Schreier like 2 weeks ago now, of the people who buy video games, 80% of them, 80% of all games sold are digital exclusive. So there are people who only buy digital games. That does not mean they don't also have a physical edition. I guess I should clarify that. But it's 80% of people buy digital games. Now, I have been arguing with some people off and on TikTok for the past week, because there are some people who claim, well, oh, that includes DLC in that number. Which, yes, it technically does. But guess what? That's still a very high number. Oh, well, it doesn't take into account the used games market. Which it doesn't. But also, why the fuck would Sony care about the used game market? They don't make any money off of used games. They only care about the games they know about, which makes up that 80%. Another thing Sony knows, of the people who buy video games, only 16% of those people buy more than one game a year. I think it's buy more than 2 games a year. It's something very small like that. Only a very small percentage of gamers buy, maybe it's 2 or more games. And then of that very small percentage, 80% of gamers only buy physical. Again, I've been arguing with people on TikTok. Some people say, no, it's actually closer to 50-50. It doesn't matter what the number is. Any number more than, what you would expect it to be is still a significant number. The fact that everybody who buys a game on PC is buying a digital-only game. There are no physical games on PC anymore. That's why they're doing this. That's why they're getting rid of discs, is because the entire PC market is digital-only. And people have no complaints there. Nobody's yelling at Valve to make physical games. And so PlayStation knows that, hey, if they do this, sure, people will complain today. But at the end of the day, they're gonna continue buying PlayStation games. And listen, I hope this gets undone. I hope physical games continue. But I think that's just the way the market is shifting. It really does feel like that. Not that consumers want the market to shift that way, but that corporate shareholders want the market to shift that way. As we see with the fact that Sony's stock price rose by 3%. 3 to 5% the day after they made this announcement. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the shareholders. It's all about the bottom dollar. If you're selling only digital games, then you can cut out Walmart and GameStop and Target and all those other big box retailers who, as long as they sell the physical console, which they don't even need to do that anymore because they can just go through your store. For Christ's sakes, even Nintendo has a store. They don't need to go to Walmart anymore. So yeah, listen, this is not something that I want. This is not something that I feel like a lot of people want. Even those 80% of people who only buy digital, I don't feel like they want this, but the corporate shareholders do, because it gives them more control. So there are multiple lawsuits against PlayStation right now, alleging that the PlayStation Store is a monopoly. And I kind of agree. Like, Valve is not a monopoly, because they have competitors. The problem is that their competitors just fucking suck compared to them. Sony just straight up has a monopoly. Imagine once everyone stopped making physical games, Valve drops Half-Life 3 physical exclusive on the Steam machine. Sony sells out. Yeah, it'd be funny, but it's not gonna happen. No. Yeah, you don't... For as much as people like to talk about PC gaming purity, you don't own your Steam games. The same way that PlayStation could just at any moment decide to delist and take away one of your games, which we'll talk about, and, close down their stores. The same thing could happen to Steam. Steam could magically just go bankrupt tomorrow, and every game you've ever bought on Steam would just go away. And yet people don't like to talk about that, because they like Valve, and they like Steam. It really, people always use that image of leave the multi-billion-dollar company alone. I think Valve is the best example of that. Like, Nintendo is also a pretty good example, but Valve has some true die-hard fans. You wish, but that's not how it works. I just sneezed so bad. So yeah, this whole announcement that PlayStation's gonna stop making physical games it leaves a lot of questions unanswered, because this is still a year and a half away, and so there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered. The obvious one is, of course, is the PS6 digital only? Will the PS5 be digital only? Like, within a few months, are they going to stop selling the disc drive for the PS5? I could see that. In like a year from now, they're no longer selling that. I think that's totally possible. I don't like it, but I could see it. Are they going to be selling, are they still going to be selling, physical game boxes? Because they're not making discs anymore. But let's say, companies still want that gaming section at Walmart. Could they just go there and be like, oh, look at all these game boxes, and then you just take it home and it's just a code in a box? I feel like a lot of people think that's going to happen, because you're not the first person I've seen say that. But there are, there's no evidence to say that they're going to do that. Sure, there are plenty of games that work like that nowadays on all the systems, Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. But at a certain point, when you're just not making physical games, why even have a game section? Just put the game, oh, hey, look, there's a part of your electronics section that has the PlayStation 6, that has the Project Helix, and has the Switch 2, and maybe the Switch 2 has a game section, but that's it. Like, it literally, what does this mean for gaming stores? And, for places like Walmart. Because, like, GameStop is going to have to rely entirely on games from the PS5 prior. GameStop's probably going to go out of business. Or, go website only. Like, why have big box stores at that point? Just to sell people a PS6 that they then have to take home and set up and use their store front? Yeah, no, GameStop's dead. That's my safest prediction right now. Fuck Kalshi, but betting on GameStop dying in the next few years is one of the safest bets ever. I would never make it, because fuck those gambling apps. But GameStop is not going to be around by 2030. And that's being generous. But yeah, then what happens to, you know, the gaming sections at Walmart and Target? And does H-E-B have a gaming section? I assume no. I actually don't remember. I know you asked me earlier about where I shop for groceries. I kind of just, admittedly I use Target. I use Target. But, you know, I've been to Walmart, I've been to H-E-B, I've been to Smith's, Albertsons, you know, I've been all over. I kind of, you know, I go where I need to. I figured they didn't, but it's been a while. You know where I don't go? Whole Foods. Whole Foods is fucking expensive. So yeah, gaming sections are going the way of the dodo. Like, it seems like, I know Nintendo likes having a gaming section, because then some kid walking by can be like, hey mommy, look, it's the new Mario Kart. Buy it for me, please? Like, Nintendo makes bank off of that shit. At least, you know, they did back in the day. But yeah, what happens to that? Another question, what happens to third-party games? You know, presumably, because here's the thing, I feel like people don't know this. All physical games on PS5 are manufactured by Sony. So let's say, you know, Fallout 5 comes out, and it's coming to PlayStation, Xbox, and all that. If they want to get on PlayStation with a physical version with a disc, they have to go through Sony to get that disc. I admit, I wonder where Xbox gets their discs from. I don't honestly know. I presume it's not, because they're, you know how like with the part of the whole reason we're having a memory shortage and a RAM shortage is because there are only 3 companies that make RAM. Micron, Samsung, and I don't remember what the third one is. It's the same thing with discs. There are only 3 companies that make discs. PlayStation, Sony, and like 2 others. And with discs, yeah, with PlayStations, like they already don't make DVDs anymore. Is Nvidia the third one? Yeah, that sounds right. I don't know, this is, like, this has far-reaching implications other than just video games. But it will also affect video games. So basically, if a third party wants to sell video games, they're, like, this is the reason why the PS6 will definitely be disc only, is because they're not just gonna make discs for, you know, the newest EA game, or the newest you know, the new Call of Duty. No, that shit's gonna be digital only. That's, at least on PlayStation it is. So yeah, I do think that it does very much seem like, yeah, the PS6 isn't gonna have a disc drive. But they're not gonna confirm that yet. And to be fair, the same thing kind of works for Nintendo. Like, if Nintendo decided that in the future they're not going to make any more Switch cartridges, nobody else can make Switch cartridges either. Nintendo is the only one who makes those. If you want a Switch cartridge, you have to go through Nintendo. So that's the PlayStation side of things. That, yeah, I don't think PlayStation's even going to sell, you know, game boxes anymore. I do think the PS6 is going to be digital only. They may shift the PS5 to be digital only, starting in it. I mean, if prices keep going up, you know, the question is which is going to be the first console to break $1,000. Steam Machine kind of already did it, but I really don't think that counts. I think the PS6 Pro or the PS5 Pro or the PS6 is going to be the first to do it. And they're going to claim that in order to keep prices down, it's not, because a disc drive usually adds an extra like $100-$150 to a console. So I think they're going to claim that in order to keep prices down, they're not going to do it. But we know the real reason they're doing it. So I've kind of mentioned this earlier. What about Xbox? Because Xbox is in the perfect opportunity to clown on this. In the same way that PlayStation clowned on Xbox way back in the day for, you know, restricting sharing games, which they ended up reversing. Again, while you shouldn't bully people, you can bully corporations. Not only should you bully corporations, but it also works. Because quick bit of gaming history if you either don't know, don't remember, or weren't even born when this happens. Way back in 2013, Microsoft was releasing the Xbox One. And when they were going to have a thing where, let's say you bought a copy of Fallout 4. I don't know why I keep using Fallout as my example. You would insert that copy into your Xbox One. It would download the disc data onto your console, and then that disc would be locked to your console. So if you wanted to play Fallout 4, you had to use that specific disc, and let's say you lent that disc out to a friend, they would not be able to play that disc because it was locked to your console in your account, basically killing the secondhand market. Obviously, PlayStation, saw that, they clowned on Microsoft, and Microsoft eventually reversed that decision. And we'll talk about the new thing that Microsoft is doing that's kind of similar, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. We got another PlayStation story to talk about first. But so now people look at that old video and are like, hey, Xbox should, make fun of PlayStation for removing digital games. Like, hey, at least on Xbox, you'll still be able to buy physical games. But on top of Xbox having all their layoffs right now, I think the other reason why Xbox isn't making fun of PlayStation is because they're going to be doing the same thing. So a report came out from Windows Central this week that states that the next generation of Xbox hardware, Project Helix, is not expected to include a disk drive. So yes, on top of the PS6 being digital only, it does look like the Xbox Project Helix will also be digital only. So for all those people who want Microsoft to clown on them, nope, Microsoft is also killing physical games. Of course, they're not going to say that yet. We're going to have to wait until next year, or hopefully, again, much longer than that, because we don't need to start a next console generation yet. But yes, I do fully believe this rumor. I think that Xbox is also going to be killing off physical games for much the same reason that PlayStation is doing it. The only difference is that Sony, the corporation, makes the discs, whereas Microsoft presumably gets them from somebody else. Where does Microsoft get its discs for Xbox games? The company discs are managed at a facility in Mexico and also Tennessee. Okay, maybe they do make discs. I don't know, but I can almost guarantee that, yeah, Xbox, if PlayStation's going discless, Xbox in the next generation is also going to be going discless. My mouth is so dry. Oh my gosh. So what about Nintendo? Well, we know Nintendo, at least for the next console generation, does plan on continuing to make physical games. Furukawa, the president of Nintendo, has said that the next iteration of consoles will also have physical games. So whether that's talking about a Switch OLED, a Switch 2 OLED, or a Switch 2 Pro, or whatever the fuck they call it, I don't think that's what it's referring to. I think it's talking about whatever comes after the Switch 2, be that a Switch 3, the NX, Project Dolphin 2, whatever they want to call it. I do think that whatever that is going to be also have physical games. Because like I was saying earlier, Nintendo likes the fact that, a kid can see a game in a box at a store, tell their parents to buy that, and maybe on impulse they'll actually just do it. that's a very appealing prospect to Nintendo. So I do think that makes sense. I do think the next console, though, is going to be the Switch 3, because I had this idea. So I personally believe that at some point in the Switch 2's life, they're going to do a VR headset. I know we have the Nintendo Virtual Boy thing. I think Nintendo's going to lean into it even harder and make an actual VR headset. And then my guess is the Switch 3, which again, this isn't for another like 8 years. Maybe 7 years. The Switch 3, it's Switch 3. 3 ways to play. Handheld, console, VR. I'm going to call that shit right now. I'm shooting my shot. July 3rd, 2026. We'll check back in 2033. It was just an idea that came to my head while I was writing this notes up last night. Now, of course, Nintendo does have game key cards, which, you know, all digital gaming sucks. Game key cards suck. I want to be very clear here. Game key cards are not great. But I would take a game key card over a code in the box or a purely digital game any day of the week. Because at least with a game key card, I can take the game key card, give it to a friend, and they would be able to download that game with 0 restrictions. As if it was a physical game. It's not a physical game, that distinction is important, but you can still share a game key card. You cannot share a digital game, which is, I feel like, a lot of people's hang-up. And rightfully so, that is a problem. I do also think the Nintendo's virtual game card system, because I feel like a lot of people forgot about this, is Nintendo, I wouldn't be surprised if Steam had something similar, the only platform where you can share digital games. Like, if I owned Shovel Knight here, and I wanted to lend it out to a friend, even though it's a digital game, I am actually able to do that. You can lend it out for like 2 weeks at a time or something like that. It's got a lot of weird restrictions, like they have to be like in your like same game family or whatever, you know, for Switch Online. Like, it's got these weird restrictions, but you can actually lend out virtual games on Nintendo. And I don't think, I'm pretty sure Microsoft and Sony don't work like that. I think Steam might. But, you know, if you're going to go fully digital, I expect you to have a system like that in place at the bare fucking minimum. And I don't think they will, because I don't think they care. Because they want everybody to buy that $60 game. Or 70 or 80. Because that's another part of this that we didn't even talk about, is the fact that once physical games go away, there's no resale market. So, you know, if every game company decided we're no longer going to put our games on sale, they can do that. You know, they can pull a Nintendo, even though Nintendo puts their games on sale all the time. They're just not, you know, the 90% off that we see on Steam sales. So that's the first thing. And then, yeah, the second thing is they can, PlayStation, new God of War 4, they want to charge $100? Well, hey, they're a monopoly. You can only get that through their PlayStation store. You've got to pay that $100 if they want to do that. Like, there's less regulation, there's less competition. It is monopoly. It really is a monopoly at that point. So yes, everything to do with Sony no longer making discs is awful. This is truly terrible. It is the worst possible timeline for gaming. In one of the worst generations. But guess what? They're also ruining the old generations. Because our second PlayStation story this week is that the PS3 and Vita stores will be shutting down in the near future. Because that's another problem with digital-only games. Is that, let's say the consumer or the company decides to shut down the stores, the consumer can no longer access their games. Nintendo has done this a lot. You know, they did this with the Wii, the WiiU, the 3DS, the DSi. Nintendo is more prevalent about this than anybody else. But yeah, now PlayStation and Xbox are going to start doing this. So the PlayStation Store will start shutting down in August of 2026, so here in like a month. And then it will fully be shut down by July of next year. So originally it'll start in Mexico, Honduras, and Nicaragua. The PS3 store will close next month in August. And then throughout the rest of Latin America and the Middle Eastern countries, it'll close later in 2026. And then by July of 2027, the PS3 and PS Vita stores will be closed in all regions. It's only a matter of time. Again, these companies do not want to keep these stores around forever. That's all, money they're spending for, these older things. And while yes, a lot of people don't play the PS3 anymore, there are games that will become lost media because of this. That because, only like one person will have downloaded it on their PS3 and then never play it again. And, it'll just be lost to time. And that sucks. That, here, the reason why I became a physical collector, because, I played physical games, but the reason why I keep every physical game I have, I regret trading games to GameStop, is that you never know when you're going to want to play that physical game again. You never know when the mood is going to hit you and you're going to want to play Shadow of the Colossus on the PS2. Or when you're going to want to play Splatoon 1 on the WiiU, which is something I currently want to do. It's been over 10 years since I played Splatoon 1. I kind of want to play Splatoon 1 single player again. I can't play the online multiplayer, that's been shut down. But the single player, I can still play that. Yep, that's still available for me, at least. So yeah, this is just another reminder that the all-digital future is actually a terrible future. That at any point, these companies could decide to shut down their stores, and you lose access to all your games, all your materials, and it sucks. It truly does suck. And that's the terrible, no good, very bad future we're living in. And, again, bully these companies. Don't bully the people, bully the companies. Bullying corporations does work. And here's the worst part, though, is that I think no matter what, the digital-only future is happening. I want to say it was Greg Miller who said something along the lines of, we always knew one day PlayStation was going to go digital-only. We just never thought it was going to be today. It was always one day in the future. And now, here we are in the future. And everything kind of sucks. And yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate way to look at it. I do think that, yeah, this all kind of sucks. And it's the future we're living in. And we can make a stink about it. But there's nothing... At the end of the day, we're only delaying the inevitable. Oh, the good story's over. The Nintendo story was the good story. It's only gonna get worse. We still have all the Xbox shit to talk about. And the Xbox story ain't fun either. It ain't. Well, okay, the first one's okay. The second one, though, fucking sucks. The second one is awful. And we don't even know how bad it is yet. It's been a story, we've been doing for whatever. I mean, America's 250th birthday is tomorrow. And then I look at who's the president and realize I've got nothing to celebrate. Yeah, but that's in a different country. Man, it really sucks that Trump is our president for 250 years. This could be such a big celebration, and Trump's just, taking a shit on all of it, and just ruining everything. This could have been such a great moment, and now it's not. The president is the country, though. He's the figurehead. He represents every terrible dark truth that our country lies within us. So yeah, that's I'm waiting until all the Specter Knight stuff is over. We'll start up King of Cards and then we'll go into the Xbox stuff. I'm probably gonna skip the credits though. We'll do that later. I don't know, I need to go get some water. I already drank an entire thing and I'm still, oh, my mouth is so dry. I've been scramping and yelling for the past hour. Yelling by my standards, I should say. Ugh. Luckily, we got a short WIBE today. I don't know, we're not going to play much of King of Cards, but we'll play a little bit. God, I don't want to play Joustus, but I think we're going to. I don't like Joustus. It's not that it's bad. It just kills the pacing. Guess what? Trump is one of those citizens. And half the country thinks just like him. This game is good though. Shovel Knight's pretty good. Specter of Torment. Maybe it's because, you know... Well, then it's your job to get them to not support Trump anymore. Listen, I have the same struggles. You know, the only difference, potentially, I actually don't know, is that, you know, at least my family is Hispanic, so when Trump says kill all the Mexicans, I can be like, yeah, you're one of the people he wants to kill. And that did a lot of the heavy lifting. At least kind of. You're gonna have to. It's either that or the retirement home. You've got time. Not as much as you think, though. There never is as much time as you think. You're still young. You'll grow into it. See, look, there's the knight with the shovel. I told you he'd come eventually. Sure, he's not the blue one, but he's still got a shovel. It counts. I wish there was a mode where you could play all the games back to back. And like, if you finish Plague of Shadow or Specter of Torment here with the silver outfit, then in Shovel Knight he'd still have the silver outfit. All right, I'm gonna take a break there. We're gonna shift over. I'll let the credits roll. I'll go get some water, pee, and we'll be right back. And we'll talk about Xbox, and then we'll talk about the Minions movie. Because I did also see the Minions movie. But yeah, give me a minute. All right, we're back. So that was where we beat last time. Let's do King of Cards, and I guess we'll do the fucking Joustus stuff. God. If you've never done Joustus, it sucks. Joustus fucking sucks. But, like, we really don't have a... It's not that we don't have a choice, it's just... You might as well do it. Like, what do we have to lose? Except for our dignity, pride... I don't know, whatever you want to call it. So this one, kind of like the previous Shovel Knights, this is a prequel, but it's a sequel to Specter of Torment, but a prequel to Shovel Knight. They're all, again, they all kind of take place around the same time. You could argue this is a paralogue to Specter of Torment, and I wouldn't disagree if you said that. Again, it's a little complicated, but I get what they were going for. The whole premise is that there's this big card tournament. Whoever wins it will be named the King of Cards. And King Knight, our little mama's boy, crybaby Wario over here, wants to be the King of Cards. And, you know, adventure insists along the way. It's fine. You know, so here's the thing. Every other Shovel Knight campaign... You know, we beat the original Shovel Knight in like 3 hours. We beat Specter of Torment in, yeah, around 3 hours. Plague of Shadows took us about 4. The shortest run I have ever had of Specter of Torment, or of this one, the shortest run I have ever had of King of Cards was like 7 hours. So while I would love to go quicker on this one, if this takes us 7 hours, I would not be surprised. Admittedly, we're starting it this week. We will not be doing it next week. Next week, I think there is the Splatfest, so we will be playing in the Splatfest. But outside of that, yeah, if things go how I think they will, we'll probably be playing this for the next month. King of Cards takes its sweet time compared to all the others. The speed run's pretty short, because you can just ignore the Joustus stuff. But fuck it, we might as well use the Joustus stuff. You know, we've done everything else. I know we've only been getting like 98% completion, but we just might as well. When we get to Joustus, I'm not going to explain Joustus. It's a card game. You can figure it out. It reminds me of the Skylanders card game, if you ever played... I think that was Trap Team. Ah, I used to love those Skylanders games. Way back in the day. The gameplay is still good. Like, visually, you know, this still looks great. They clearly put a lot of effort into this one. I think this came out in, like, December of 2019, almost 3 years after Specter of Torment. This one took forever to release. But it did, and I'm glad it did. Alright, let's get back on track and let's talk about Xbox. I don't want to be here all night. So, Xbox, the first thing is that we got a report from The Verge that says that Xbox is testing a disc-to-digital feature. So, what does this mean? Basically, this will allow you to digitize your physical game collection. So this will only work with Xbox One and Xbox Series games. So you can't do this on a 360 game, you can't do this with an OG Xbox. But it'll give you digital entitlement tied to a specific disc that can move from account to account if you swap discs with a person. So whereas, you know, we talked about the Xbox One earlier, and how the Xbox One system, it tied that physical game to your console, and everybody hated that. This system does not seem to be doing that. Like, yes, it looks like you can digitize your games, but it does not lock those games to your system. In theory, you could give that game to a friend, and they would be able to download it onto their console and play it. And then you would lose access on your console. So it kind of is like a game key card. Like if you use Nintendo's game key card system, you know, you download the game with the game key card. But then if you lend that game key card to a friend, you still can't play that game, even though it's digitally downloaded. You still need that key card to access it. Now, whether you will still need the disc to play the game is a little bit uncertain. Like, let's say I take a copy of, I don't know, Fallout 3 off the Xbox One. I don't know why. Again, Fallout 3 is a 360 game. Whatever. You get my point. I take a copy of Fallout 3. I download it I have a physical disc. I download it onto my system. Do I still have to have the physical disc in the console to play it? Or because it's been digitized, can I just play it without the disc? And then it'll run a check every time to see if anybody else has it. And if nobody else has it, then it'll let me keep playing it. But let's say I then lend that copy of Fallout 3 to a friend. Does it now give him the license and I can no longer play it? Is it like a game key card? Is it like a virtual game key? Whatever they're called. We really don't know, because again, this is all just a rumor from The Verge that, you know, some of this information was spotted in their code. But yeah. And it says that the discs will still work after they're digitized. So, like, digitizing a disc does not, like, render it useless. No, you will still be able to use that disc. And you only lose digital entitlement if you loan or sell that disc to somebody else. So the disc is not locked to a specific console. Now, I should say stuff like game key cards, like how we think about them with Nintendo, those do exist on Xbox and PlayStation. The most famous recent example is Doom: The Dark Ages. If you buy Doom: The Dark Ages on Xbox, you're just getting a disc that lets you download the game. And then you just need that disc to authorize you being able to play it. It's a game key card in everything but name. Because Nintendo tried to be a little bit transparent with their game key cards, and it blew up in their faces. Meanwhile, people don't even know Xbox and PlayStation do that shit. Because they don't talk about it. Again, it's a double standard. What else is new? Again, grifters trade blood for outrage. So, I think the system like this is not a terrible idea. Being able to, you know, just have all your digital games, or all your physical games just downloaded onto your system, so that way you don't need to, like, constantly swap out discs, that's where the appeal of digital games to begin with came from. And giving those properties to physical games is not a terrible one. Because, like, for me, okay, I talk about how much I value physical media, right? I am a physical, I wouldn't say collector, but I have basically all the games I have are physical. There are a few exceptions, though. Obviously, there's stuff that's physical only. Or, you know, that originally releases on physical and then gets a limited digital release, or there's stuff that only releases digitally and then has a limited physical release later on. Kind of like Shovel Knight here. Like, yeah, they did eventually get a physical edition, but not until years later. Celeste is kind of the same way. But no, my thing with the digital, because I do own a few digital games, they're all games I play every day. Or I would be willing to play every day. Stuff like Animal Crossing New Horizons, Splatoon, Smash Ultimate, you know, a lot of multiplayer games, and stuff that I would play every day. Mario Kart World's another good example. Because that's a game I would be willing to play every day, in theory. So being able to be like, hey, you know, you could have your cake and eat it too. You could buy the physical game, but then you'd also be able to switch between those games I just mentioned at any time. Does seem convenient. There's got to be a monkey's paw twist here, though. There's definitely going to be some sort of like, oh, you can only do it with this many, or it only works like this. Like, there's definitely going to be some sort of restriction. But again, this system is better than the alternative. And it's better than just killing physical media, which is, again, what PlayStation is doing, and what Xbox is, in all likelihood, probably also going to do. So that's our less negative Xbox story. Our negative Xbox story is, of course, the closures. Because as we know, there's been talk basically since like the second week of June. And every week there's been updates about how Xbox is closing up to 5 studios. So of course, we don't know which studios are being closed yet. We don't know how many people are being laid off. They have kind of hinted that this is going to be the biggest layoffs in Xbox history, which the last time Xbox did layoffs, I want to say they laid off 1,400 people. So the idea that this could in theory be up to like 2,000 is fucking crazy. But, oh God, I hate that this is the first thing I thought of. It is possible that more people get laid off on Monday from Xbox than people who died in 9/11. That is totally within the realm of possibility. It's very extreme. That is a very extreme example. But it's fucking crazy to think about. So we know, what do we know? So a lot of this comes from Jason Schreier and whatnot. And it's that we know Xbox is going to be closing at least 5 studios. Or at least there are 5 studios that are under negotiations as to whether they're going to be closed, going to be spun off. If there's going to be a studio mergers, that's another possibility. You know, games are going to be canceled. And yeah, it's probably going to affect 5 studios. We have a good idea of who those 5 studios are. Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Arcane. Double Fine, Ninja Theory, Arcane. Fuck, what were the other 2? I don't actually have them all written down. This is all just going off of memory. So that's like the first, like we know it's going to be at least 5 studios. At least, again, that's the talk right now. Why can I not think of the other ones? I don't remember. Again, there are 5. So we, then coming from The Verge, we have the fact that Xbox with Arcane is considering canceling the Blade game that is currently in development and shutting that studio down. Because we did not see anything of the Blade game this year. And the developers just came out and were like, hey, let us cook. We may not get the opportunity to let them cook because they might be getting shut down. Because right now the Blade game is eyeing a 2027 release date. It is allegedly over budget. And so Xbox is, you know, weighing their options. Do they close Arcane? Do they branch them off into an external studio? You know, what's going on with them? And we won't know until Monday, probably Tuesday. You know, sometime Monday or Tuesday. We just won't know. Another thing where it's seeming that's happening with Xbox is so Xbox has partnerships with other third-party developers to, you know, make basically what is considered a second-party game. So one of those second-party games we know about is OD, which is the new Hideo Kojima game. That seemingly is unaffected by this. As far as we're aware, that has not been affected. But one that has been effective is IO Interactive. So IOI, you know, developer behind Hitman, they just released 007 to massive success. You know, that game is critically acclaimed, it sold very well. Well, the project that Xbox and IO Interactive were working on together, called Project Fantasy, that partnership is coming to an end. Because, you know, IO Interactive put out a statement saying that, hey, our partnership over Project Fantasy has come to an end. And they didn't specifically say it was Xbox, but we know it was Xbox. IO Interactive has said that they will adapt to this new reality and its short-term consequences, including staff decisions. And that IOI is still committed to Project Fantasy and says the wonderful universe will see the light of day. So, even though Microsoft is pulling some of the funding for this one, it looks like 007 was successful enough that while IOI may face some staffing shortages, whatever their new Project Fantasy is will continue. So that is good. You know, at least not everything's been completely fucked. But the fact that they may face staffing shortages, again, that's people out of a job. Because I know we've talked about in the past that one of the nice things about this whole Microsoft thing was that Microsoft would buy these studios that would then afford developers the money and needs to make the games they want. Like with Double Fine. Double Fine was able to greatly improve Psychonauts 2 by using that Xbox money. So we've had all these, again, there's the 3 studios I remember, the 2 that I'm completely forgetting for some reason. Ninja Theory, what the Xbox Studios closing. Ninja Theory, Double Fine, Arcane, Compulsion Games, and Undead Labs. Those were the other 2. Compulsion Games, of course, South of Midnight, and Undead Labs, they've stayed at the K3. Which is another one of those games that we just found out more info about, only for it to be like, oh, well, you know, were they just auctioning them off as well? So we have those 5. And then a report came out this week, like yesterday, 2 days ago, that was saying that Obsidian might also be on the chopping block. That, you know, Obsidian is basically in negotiations with Microsoft as to whether or not they will be closed or spun off. So that potentially added a 6th studio into the mix. But shortly after that report was published, Jason Schreier came out and said, and I'm going to just quote him here, "I can confirm that Obsidian is not in negotiations to avoid shutting down. Plenty of details are still up in the air surrounding the layoffs. Picture will be clear on Monday, but Xbox is keeping Obsidian according to people familiar with the situation." So the big thing here is you have Obsidian, this critically acclaimed developer that, sure, they haven't always sold amazingly well. Admittedly, they haven't always been critically acclaimed either. For as much as people love Fallout New Vegas, it is technically a cult classic. It did not sell that well, sadly. Or it did not review that well. I think it reviewed like a 78 or something. Like, it did not review perfectly, for as much as we love that game. But I say all that to look at Obsidian, you know, this beloved studio, and be like, why the fuck would you shut them down? You know, we know Asha Sharma does not have as much control as we'd like. That at the end of the day, Satya Nadella is running Xbox. He's the one with the power. He's the one in control. It's Satya Nadella's Xbox. But he knows nothing about the gaming industry. He could not give less of a fuck about the games industry. But we know who Obsidian is. And if I were, you know, anyone in charge of Xbox, I would tell Obsidian, like, hey, whatever you're doing right now, stop it. You're done. You're just going to make Fallout New Vegas Remastered, Fallout New Vegas 2, whatever the fuck you call it. Like, you don't, kind of like with Bluepoint, you don't close Bluepoint, you just make them make something that people will want, that you know would sell well regardless. Same thing with Obsidian. You don't close Obsidian. You force them to make something that you know would make a lot of money. Like a Fallout New Vegas 2, or a Fallout New Vegas Remastered. You know, Avowed and whatever the other one, Outer Worlds 2, they seemingly did okay, but not great. And yeah, you basically tell Obsidian, hey, no more making the projects you want. You have to do the things we want. You don't close them down. Which does suck, but it compares, you know, everybody in the studio losing their fucking job. So yeah, overall, I mean, I'm glad Obsidian isn't closing. Again, I just played Grounded. And Grounded was a fantastic game. Loved that fucker. And so the idea that they might be closing sounds awful. That sounds like an awful possibility. But it is also a possibility. And that sucks. Again, everything is so uncertain with Xbox. we're truly in a very worrisome time for Xbox. And again, Jason Schreier has been saying for like a month now that the Xbox of June looks very different than the Xbox of July. That they're basically two different companies. And we're just waiting. So this is going to be a story next week. Definitely, we will talk about this, because by that point, we will know how bad the layoffs are, how bad things have gotten, and how many people they did actually lay off. We'll know by this time next week. So we will definitely be back to talk about it. But it sucks, and the uncertainty is just awful. So we do have some bite-sized news. We might as well just talk about it. So the first thing is dbrand. I don't know if you heard the story. So when the Steam Machine was announced, dbrand, who makes, skins and whatnot for consoles, put out a thing that was like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did a companion cube themed Steam Deck skin? That, it's a Steam Deck cover that looks like a companion cube. And everybody loved that idea. Everybody thought it was great. So dbrand went in and started developing it. They spent 7 months prototyping it. However, as we found out this week, at no point in that 7 months did they ever think about asking Valve for the license for Portal / the companion cube. Because at the end of the day, that is IP owned by Valve. If they wanted to make this product, they would need to get Valve's permission. Because dbrand isn't some, rinky-dinky Etsy shop. No, they're a big brand company. So they do need licensing and permission. And they didn't get it. And so this week they announced that they have canceled this. That since the companion cube is Valve intellectual property and dbrand did not get a license, they will be canceling their companion cube Steam Deck skin. And they will be issuing refunds, because they had already started taking pre-orders. That's good. It's good to know that they're being issuing refunds. I guess because Valve, reached out to them with, one of their lawyers and asked dbrand to take it down. And then at that point, that old saying, like, it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is permission, or whatever the fuck the saying is. dbrand then asked, like, hey, we understand, we'll take it down, we're sorry. Can we talk about getting the license? Like, this is something people clearly want. And Valve just told them no. Which, yeah, I kind of don't blame Valve. I get why they would say no. With how this all turned out, I kind of get it. I really wish that at some point during those 7 months, they had actually thought about it and been like, no, I guess we should actually ask Valve about this. Like, it's kind of crazy. Again, I think of like that like Pepsi ad and shit like that. Where, in order to release a Pepsi ad on national TV, that has to go through hundreds of people. The marketing people, the executives, the actors, the people filming it, the director. And at no point did anybody notice anything wrong with that. It's the same thing for this dbrand thing. This had to go through so many people. And at no point did anybody think, oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this is the wrong move. Like, nobody at any point thought that. That's just crazy. So that's our first thing. Our second one thing is Onimusha. The new Onimusha game comes out in September. It originally had a September 25th release date, but in some good news, it has been pushed up. Onimusha will now be coming out 3 weeks earlier on September 4th. Because right now there are like 50 games coming out in September. And so the idea of, yeah, let's just move the game up a few weeks. That's, that's a little reassuring that, like, it shows that they're confident in the game, but also they want to avoid all the rigmarole that is September by getting themselves out early. And I would not be surprised if we see something like this again. I know another game got delayed this week out into next year, but getting this in September earlier, yeah, you know, for all the people who are excited for this, Capcom's kind of on a fucking roll right now, so I don't blame them for doing this. Like, I get it. God, was that simple? So yeah, there's some good news. And then our final thing, so this is a leak, but, you know, for people who care about spoilers, I guess, we're going to talk about it. This is Metroid related. So this came in a document filing from the Brazilian Ministry of Justice and Public Security. Which you may ask, why the fuck is that coming from them? A Metroid leak? It's because the Brazilian Ministry of Justice and Public Security handles game ratings in Brazil. So they're the ones who are in charge of deciding what age rating a game gets. And someone found a document this week that says that the next Metroid game will be called Metroid Ravenous. We don't know much more than that. All we know is that it's called Metroid Ravenous. And that it will... that's it. That's all we know. Metroid Ravenous. It was filed by Nintendo of America, so that is most likely the English name. And yeah, I think that sounds great. You know, there's been rumors about a new 3D Metro, or yeah, not 3D Metroid, a new follow-up to Metroid 6 for a while now. It was kind of inevitable that this was going to happen sooner or later, and it seems like the right time. Metroid Ravenous, I think, is a good name, because Ravenous, if you don't remember, if you didn't play Metroid Dread, the main antagonist of Metroid Dread is named Ravenbeak. Ravenous, Raven, I think that's clever. So I think that's a good name. I'm fine with that. My guess, I do not think this is coming out this year. I think Metroid Ravenous is going to be a 2027 game, but I think it'll be revealed in September. I think Nintendo reveals it in September and then announces it's coming out in like February. Because I think this year is already too busy. We already have too many games. I mean, I guess in theory it could come out that first week of December, but I kind of doubt it. It's not coming out in November, and we don't know what's going on with Ocarina. So I think it's a safe bet to say it's coming out next year. And I think September, if they announce it in September and announce a February release date, I think that'd be cool. I mean, the fact that it's already because we get occasional game leaks from like Korea, from their ratings board. So the fact that this leaked from Brazil, it's just new. You know, that doesn't happen all that often. But it makes sense. And yeah, I do think we will see something from this, hopefully in the next few months. I don't know. It's going to be a little bit for sure, but I think we will see something sooner or later. But yeah, I guess reveal in September, release February 27. So that's all I've got for news. So I guess let's get into WIBE. So what do I expect or what have I been enjoying? I have not been playing any video games. I have been so busy. But, you know, you find time where you can. Okay, I have admittedly been playing a little bit of Splatoon 3. Like I mentioned, I'm back in S rank. I'm not doing great in S rank, mind you. Like, I'm just doing okay. I've won a few matches. I'm still really only good at zones. As I've come to learn, yeah, I'm really only good at zones. But I've still been having fun. You know, it's been a good time. But other than that, I've played no video games. Technically, I do actually have a food thing. So, a while ago, we talked about Domino's slice sauce. and how I wasn't able to get any. Well, I went to Domino's today, and I got some sliced sauce, and yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I had actually had it before. I had it one other place, but I don't remember if we talked about it or not. But yeah, it's good. It reminds me of a Greek dressing. It's definitely a very Parmesan-focused sauce, but that's not bad. It's like if you made like a garlic sauce, but with a heavy Parmesan base. But taste-wise, it kind of reminds me of like a Parmesan Greek dressing, which I think is good. Yeah. So, yeah, I liked it. Domino's was okay. I didn't get much from them, but, better than the last time I had Domino's, that's for sure. I don't really have anything else out for food. And then, yeah, we got to talk about Superman. I got to talk about my adventures with Superman, because we had a great episode this week. And then I did go see the new Minions movie, because I don't know if you've seen, but critics fucking love this movie. It is the highest rated Illumination movie ever. Knocking fucking the Mario movies out of the park. And we'll talk about that as well. But no, I did watch it. I thought it was fine. And yeah, that's kind of it. I didn't watch Supergirl. I know I said I was going to watch Supergirl, and I just kind of ran out of time. I was busy. Again, there's always next week. I would have loved to have gotten to it this week, but yeah, shit just happened. I'll try again later. But hey, I don't know. I don't really have much else to say. Alright, let's talk my adventures with Superman. So this episode is called All's Fair in Love and Worms. So the conceit of this is that, last episode, Jimmy told Kara to go out and see the world. To, talk to other men, that she still has the potential to fall in love. An actual good statement. Like, I actually do completely agree with Jimmy on that front. That is something he should do. Because, yeah, we say that we joke that Jimmy fumbled, but at the end of the day, I do agree with why he fumbled. So this episode is, at the end of the last one, we saw Kara had this booth, and all these men showed up at her booth, and Jimmy got jealous, and Cat Grant pointed fun at him because of that. So this one is Jimmy is trying to get revenge, in a weird passive-aggressive way, by going to W.O.R.M.S, which is, I don't remember what the acronym is, but it's a science-based mixer. So they use computer science and whatnot to match people for dates. And it's run by two women, Sazala and Tazala, who, characters I obviously did not recognize. They're the Queen Bees in the comics, which is a character I knew nothing about. But I did learn that in the comics, they're sisters. Whereas in the show, they're in a lesbian relationship. Which is just a little weird. Like, again, these are alternate universes. They can do whatever the fuck they want. But it is just a little weird that you have these two characters who are sisters in the comics, and now they're in a relationship in the show. And don't get me wrong, this show has done gay relationships before, and it's actually done a pretty good job with its gay relationships. You had Mala in the Brain in season 1, you have Livewire and I almost said Heat Miser. What's his name? Or what's her name? It's a guy. The show can make changes. The Heat villain, whose name I don't remember, is a guy in the comics. And is a woman in the show. And is also a Flash villain. Heat something? Heat? I don't remember. But, this show has some good LGBT relationships. And so we get these two, and it's like, oh, okay, they should be cool. But, yeah, they're sisters in the comics, and that's just a little weird. It's not a big deal, though. And so at this event, he meets Giganta, and earlier on in the episode, Lois, is like, Jimmy, why are you going to this mixer? you know, Perry asked you to find the Distortionist. And Jimmy's like, yeah, I'll get to it, whatever. And so at this thing, he finds out that Giganta is the Distortionist. Yeah, you know, she changes men to be more like her ideal type. Because at the end of the day, that's what she's looking for, is love. Which I thought that was cute. The whole Jimmy gets turned into a werewolf. And then they kind of gloss over the fact that Zazzla and Tazla like turn him back to normal. Because they're not, like, in the comics they're villains, but in the show, no, they're not. But it also kind of doesn't matter. Yeah, they kind of gloss over that fact. God, I'm doing awful. But, so afterwards, Jimmy, you know, says he has no interest in Giganta, and she's like, I came here for nothing more than a date. So she then turns gigantic. The gigantic design has the same problem as every other villain in this show. They have unnecessary metal armor. I still think the design is fine, but yeah, they have a bunch of like metal armor that they just straight up don't need. But other than that, the design looks fine. I think Giganta, you know, she kidnaps Jimmy, drags him up a building. Clark comes in to save Jimmy, and afterwards they've turned Giganta back to normal. And she clings on to Clark, and it's like, oh, you're so warm and so soft. And Clark just pushes her away, and it's like, ma'am, I'm in a committed relationship. Fucking hilarious. Great line, great joke, loved it. So that was a great start. So that's that plot. The B plot is Lois tells Kara about Jimmy going to W.O.R.M.S, and is like, oh, you should get out there, you should go get a date to make him jealous. And so they try to set up basically a Hinge profile for Kara, but because, you know, she's new to the planet, she doesn't really have any interests or hobbies. So Lois is like, oh, let me show you out and show you Metropolis culture. And so that's the plan. However, they pass by the mall, and Kara's like, oh, let's go in there. Let's go see the mall. So this is where I come in. So I saw that clip of the mall, and my first thought was the Robin Sparkles from How I Met Your Mother, the song Let's Go to the Mall. So I took the episode and I made an edit of the song with the clips from this episode in the mall, and I posted it on TikTok. I put it on YouTube as well. On YouTube, it got a fair few thousand views. Because I'd also got put on Reddit, and people watched it off of that. On YouTube, it got 5,000 views. On TikTok, it got also 5,000 views. 5,005 views. And they're still growing. Like, it's still going up here day and day. But this is one of the best performing videos I've had in a while. Like, the best compared to this one is like 173. So yeah, I would say overall that video is successful. I think it's very fun. What sells it for me is the ending bit. It just, go watch it, you know, link in the description and all that. Go watch it. I think it's very cute. But yeah, they go to the mall. The mall in this episode is filled with references. You have Black Canary, you have Amethyst, Princess of Gym World, you have Ted Cord, Kara listens to Chaperone, even though you don't hear a Chaperone song, but it's clearly Chaperone on like the album art. You have Kara dresses up like Winry from Full Metal Alchemist. There's even more. Because Lois's big thing is that Clark is, you know, he's ready to move on, and when he wants to get married and have kids. And Lois just feels like she isn't ready yet. That, you know, there's still so much life ahead of them. That, yes, that's something they will do eventually. But that's not something they have to do today. So Lois is kind of struggling with that. And during this, you see like a ring case and you see a Green Lantern ring. and Lois and Kara is like, hey, just take this ring. And in the background, you see like a wedding photo of just some couple, but it's Lois and Clark's outfits from the comics for when they got married in the comics. Because yeah, Clark wants, he wants kids, he wants to have a farm, do all that shit. And because here's the thing, I feel like in a lot of these shows, they're so afraid to make couples and to put people in relationships because people, they find it harder to write relationships, but they also find relationships boring. But then I watch shit like this and it's like, no, you can have characters in a relationship who still have their struggles. And like, the first season is will they get together? Will Clark and Lois get together? The second season is all about, how's their relationship gonna work? Can an alien date a Kryptonian? And by the end of the season, they're in a much better place. And so now this third season, okay, they're in a committed relationship. Kara and Jimmy and Kara are going through what they did in season 1. So now for them, it's, well, what do we do next? Do we get married? Do we have kids? How fast do we take it? How slow do we want to take it? That's the question with Lois. And all the Kara stuff is just so much fun. The whole mall sequence, I haven't even mentioned yet. I used the Robin Sparkles Let's Go to a Mall. In the actual episode, Kara and Lois sing a song. It is not a good song. I want to be very clear. I make fun of like Peaches from the Mario movie, and people like Peaches, but it's not actually a good song. Same thing here. Like, this is a musical moment in the episode. It's not actually a good song. The song is not that good. But the fact that they had the fucking gall to do it to begin with, put a musical sequence in a Superman show, earns me so much credit. They didn't even bring in the music maestro to do it, which is normally the excuse they get. No, they just fucking did it. And I respect it. The fact that they even attempt a musical number. They've earned, the show already had my respect, but it just shows that how good they are. So I love the whole mall sequence. It's really good. Afterwards, they see Jimmy, who's being held hostage by Giganta, and Lois is just like, that's not what winning looks like. Because Kara thinks like she has to get bigger. And yeah, that's the whole will they, won't they of this season. I don't want it to go on forever, but I do think it's kind of funny. And then our ending bit of the episode is we see at some point in the future, we see a future Jimmy, a future Steel, and a future Lex Luthor as they're being attacked by some Kryptonian robot, and they send Superboy back to the past. So I had known a lot of people had asked, is the Superboy in this show going to be Connor? Or is it going to be John? If you don't know, Connor is the clone of Superman in Lex Luthor, whereas John is Clark and Lois's son. And so far, the widespread idea was that this was going to be Connor. In fact, so much so that I think even Adult Swim at one point had said that this was Connor. And no, at the end of this episode, it does confirm this is John. So this is Jonathan, Clark and Lois's kid, which makes sense. I'll be honest, it makes a lot of sense. Lois's whole arc this season with Clark is whether or not they want kids. So Lois, seeing their kid from the future is an obvious jump at that. How it's actually going to play out, we have no idea. Because I guess people were looking at the footage. We don't know anything past like episode 6. Like, all the footage we've seen so far only comes from the first like 5 episodes. We do know this Death of Superman is happening. One of the episodes is called The Death of Superman, which is a little worrisome. I think that's episode 5. But we know in the next episode is going to be about John, and they're going to meet him finally. And that should be interesting. I'm excited for that next week. Or, in 2 days. But we'll talk more about that next week. But overall, I thought this episode was so much fun. The musical bit, the Giganta stuff, You know, we've had like 3 Wonder Woman villains in this show, and I know they're doing Green Lantern next, but please just give us a My Adventures with Wonder Woman. Like, come on, you've got her villains. Just give us, you know, I don't, someone made a joke about like, oh, DC will do anything but give Wonder Woman a show. Or, you know, a movie, or just fucking anything. Give us some Wonder Woman. There's so much good Wonder Woman. And instead they just keep giving her antagonists to other characters. Admittedly, this show plays loosey-goosey with its antagonist. Again, Heatwave is a Flash villain. There's another example. Silver St. Cloud is a Batman love interest antagonist. It's a little complicated. You know, this show plays a little bit loosey-goosey with things, which I'm fine with that. But also just fucking give us a Wonder Woman show. Give us a Wonder Woman movie. God. I just, you know, the Gal Gadot movie directed by Patty Jenkins is a good movie. It's maybe the best acting performance Gal Gadot has ever given, which it's not even that good because it's fucking Gal Gadot. But that movie's just so hard to watch nowadays because it is Zionist Gal Gadot. Like, fuck, man. And instead, nope, we keep getting stuff like The Authority and the Green Lantern show, which people are not excited for. And Supergirl, which I thought was, you know, I've seen a lot of people write off Supergirl, that we should have never gotten a Supergirl show or a Supergirl movie, that, you know, that James Gunn is messing up. I think Supergirl is a fine second movie in the universe. That's not the one I have a problem with. The stuff I have a problem with is Creature Commandos and The Authority and all this other bullshit. No, you got to give us Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and then you can figure out the rest. You're giving us 2 good Supermans, an okay Supergirl. Give me a Batman and give me a Wonder Woman. You can figure out everything else later. But no, James Gunn loves his glub shittos. And so as a result, everything in this DC universe is glub shitto. And while some of it does work, again, Creature Commandos was not a bad show. It's just, fucking Wonder Woman, God. And I'm so worried about that Green Lantern show, man. My Adventures with Green Lantern should be good. But the Lanterns with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, not so much. And yeah, I think that's all I got to say about that. I'm excited for the next episode. This season has been so good. It's such a good show. We're so lucky we have it. I hope it gets another season. I hope it just keeps going. I worry about what Gunn and Zaslav are going to do to it. Mostly what Zaslav is going to do to it. Oh, also Clayface. That's another one I didn't mention. Why the fuck is Clayface the third thing? Don't get me wrong. I think the Clayface movie could be good. But why is that third? I don't know. Alright, let's talk Minions versus Monsters. So, I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I was going to see this. Up to this point, I saw Despicable Me 1 and 2 in theaters. I think I saw 3 at some point. I never saw 4. I saw the Minions movie, but I never saw the second one. Because Illumination is not a good studio. They do not have that many good movies. I know some people who will say that fucking Minion, the first Despicable Me, is the only good movie Illumination has ever made. And honestly, I wouldn't entirely argue with that. The second Despicable Me was like, oh, okay, you know, it's okay, it's got its moments, but it's still, you know, an Illumination movie. It reminds me a lot of the second Hotel Transylvania. Like, I'll stand by, the first Hotel Transylvania is great. The second one, it's got its moments, but overall it's nothing special, and they should have never made 3 or 4. Same thing with Despicable Me. First one's good, second one's got its moments, they should have never made 3 or 4. Minions movie sucks. I have always given the Minions movie credit that it's got some great music. The soundtrack for the first Minions movie is filled with a bunch of like 60s hits, and it's actually pretty good. But like, that's the only good thing I have to say about that movie. Because, you know, it's Illumination, and they love their licensed music because they're willing to cash out for it. So going into Minions and Monsters, the thing that got me interested was the fact that it is the highest rated Illumination movie. Better than all those Despicable Me's I just mentioned, better than The Secret Life of Pets, all of those, better than the Sings. I've actually heard the second Sing movie is actually pretty decent, but I've never seen either one. And then it's better than the 2 Mario movies, which we'll talk about that at the end, the Mario movies. But yeah, the fact that this is the highest rated Despicable Me, or, you know, adjacent thing, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Especially because I would say the Minions movies are the worst. Like, the Minions movies are just bad. Again, I never saw the second one. But, like, out of all the Despicable Me movies to exist, I feel like Minions 2 has the least reason. So, this one, I think part of the reason why this movie is reviewing so well is because it's a love letter to film. It's a movie about making movies and how good movies are and how important movies are. And critics love that shit. Like, there are multiple jokes in this movie about whether the main minion James is going to win an Oscar. And like, it is a little self-indulgent. Like, at the end, spoiler alert for a movie that spoiler alerts don't fucking matter. He does get an award. It's not an actual Oscar, it's just like a banana trophy. But like, honestly, if this movie wins an Oscar, I wouldn't be surprised. Just because the Academy loves movies about making movies. And this is a movie that loves making movies. So yeah, if this movie wins over, you know, Toy Story 5 or whatever the fuck Pixar did, whatever else Pixar did this year, Hoppers, or I don't know, do we have a Disney? Oh, Hexed. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it will. I think Toy Story 5 is a better movie than this. But also, you know, the Academy is weird. To be fair, Toy Story 4 won, and that movie's, yeah. But, so what is this movie about? So this follows a different group of Minions. Because, you know, in the original Minions movie, they talk about how, oh, the Minions have traveled the world since, like, amoebas. And they always try to serve the most evil person. And they specifically comment about how the Minions, after serving Napoleon, went to the Arctic and got trapped in an ice cave until the 1960s, specifically to avoid having the Minions serve Hitler. So if the Minions were trapped in an ice cave from like 1812 until, you know, 1960, how are there Minions in the 1920s? Because this movie takes place in, I don't know what year in 1920, but it takes place in the 1920s. And basically the movie's just explanation is there are different groups of Minions. You know, we followed the Gru ones. They're not the only Minions. So the previous Minion movie had Bob, Stewart, and I wrote it down somewhere. Kevin. In the first 2 movies. This one we get 3 new characters. James, Henry, and Ed. Now, I do want to point out, Ed is deaf. He uses sign language. And I actually like that. I thought, you know, he doesn't really speak ever, and he communicates with sign language. All the characters respect his sign language. They use sign language around him. Not always, but for the most part. And I like that. You know, again, these movies are super popular with kids. And some kid who, you know, is deaf or has hearing aids is gonna see this. They're going to feel represented as, again, one of the main characters in this movie. Not as important as James or Henry, but, you know, still there. And they're gonna love that. So I think that's good. Again, this, even despite, you know, I say like, oh, this is only the highest rated because of its love of Hollywood. This is still probably the best Despicable Me movie since the original. Like, this is, it has its moments. It got a few laughs out of me. So for a movie called Minions and Monsters, the first half of this movie has almost no monsters in it. Like, yes, there is a sequence early on where they're serving the Cyclops. And there's a sequence a little later on where they're serving this wizard guy, and they summon this bunny that blows up his wizard tower. So, like, yes, there are a few moments with monsters early on. And then after that, they kind of forget about the monsters for a while. You know, the minions are out on their own. They're trying to find a new master. Eventually, they end up... They're in the American Southwest, California, the California deserts, and they see a train robbery. And they're like, oh, we're going to go serve this cowboy guy, you know, this outlaw. And then at the end, they end up chasing him into L.A., In LA, there's this whole train sequence. Goes on for a while, but it was entertaining enough. And at the end of that sequence, you find out the whole train robbery thing was all just a movie. And the Minions interrupted the movie. And then afterwards, the director, whose name I don't remember, has to go to the heads of, I think they're called like Bright Brothers, but it's clearly a play on Warner Brothers. These two fat guys. And he tells them that, he shows them the movie and is like, oh, I apologize. The Minions ruined this movie. And the guy's like, no, I loved the Minions. You should put the Minions in everything. So that's how the Minions become actors. And so we get to see, this movie is filled with parodies of other movies. During that train sequence, there is a massive tribute to Charlie Chaplin, where they do a bunch of Charlie Chaplin movies, you know, The Clock, him stuck in the gears, the house falling down on him. They recreate, when the Minions become movie stars, they recreate a bunch of classic black and white movies. The movie actually opens up with a sequence of the Minions being inserted into, like, Metropolis and what is the moon movie called? Expedition to the Moon. Just a bunch of black and white movies. This is a movie that loves movies. I think it's only in the trailers. You know who is in the movie though? George Lucas. Yeah, the guy who created Star Wars is in this movie. And he makes a, kind of like how Stan Lee is in the Teen Titans movie, he makes a brief cameo where they have him trapped inside a museum, inside a glass case. And George is like, when will you let me go? When the museum exhibit closes. Can I at least have my phone? No, George, then you try to escape. Yeah, because the movie... So the movie does that thing where it's a movie within a movie, because there's this whole framing device of like how the Minions are important to cinematic history, which, can I be honest, they're kind of right. Like, even if the Despicable Me movies are not great, they are kind of, you know, the Minions make like $1 billion every movie. They've earned a little bit of cred. Not as much as the movie gives them credit for, but at least a little bit of cred. And yeah, you get this whole setup is the how the Minions helped shape Hollywood. And yeah, so the Minions are making movies, but eventually sound comes to the movies. This becomes Singing in the Rain for a moment, where it's like, okay, now that sound is in the movies, the Minions have to speak in them. And now, you know, they speak in their stupid banana language, and nobody wants to hear them in the banana language. Especially in, like, dramas, because they redo, like, Citizen Kane and whatnot, but with Minions. And at the end of it, the Minions get kicked out of Hollywood, and the majority of the Minions go off with a guy named Dick, who they specifically highlight that he's not called Richard, but he's called Dick, and everybody should call him Dick, and he is, in fact, a giant dick. Yeah, that's a joke in this movie. So a majority of the Minions go off with him. Meanwhile, James, Henry, and Ed stay off. They want to keep making movies. And James has the idea to make a monster movie. So they go to this director guy, And he's like, oh yeah, of course, I love your vision. Clearly, James, you're this cinematic auteur. I want to support you. Here's a camera. Now, if you're going to make a monster movie, you have to get a monster. So from there, they go and they summon Cthulhu. Cthulhu's, his actual name he goes by is Gary something something the Deceiver. And so he's evil and he's just tricking the minions. He goes by Gooby, though. They call him Gooby for most of the movie. Voiced by fucking Trey Parker. Yeah, the South Park guy voices the minion, the Gooby Cthulhu in this. Which, that's probably the second time he's played Cthulhu. Because he probably, he also probably played Cthulhu in South Park. Probably. Could have been Matt. I know Trey Parker has been in one of these movies before. I think he was in the third one. But I still find it funny that he would... I saw his name in the opening credits. And was like, wait, Trey Parker's in this thing? What the fuck? I'm honestly kind of surprised they don't get both of them in on this. So afterwards, Gooby takes the minions. They go to this ancient island where these two monsters... Ralph and Howard... are trapped inside this ice cave. They free them, and Gooby's like, oh, let's go back to Hollywood and make movies. Wink, wink. Hinting that they're actually just gonna eat everybody. And they're just having the minions, be stupid. Meanwhile, all the Dick and the others, they go to Comic-Con, or it's like sci-fi convention. Because this movie takes place in the 1920s, and there's a lot of jokes about how, oh, isn't everything so great in the 1920s? We're all drinking, we're smoking cigarettes, nobody cares about their health, the economy's great, and things will never be bad again. We see a big subplot of this movie is women's suffrage. That there's a suffragette, and we'll talk about her in a minute. But yeah, this movie is very clearly set in the 1920s. You see them pouring liquor down a drain because Prohibition is still going on. And so the minions go to the sci-fi convention, and there they meet Dort, played by fucking Jesse Eisenberg. Motherfucking Jesse Eisenberg Facebook movie. He's in this, and he plays a robot. And now everybody else is like, oh, this is a guy in a robot costume. But I was like, no, he's probably actually a robot, isn't he? Sure enough, he's an actual fucking robot. So the minions end up working for him and are, trying to do his bidding, whether he decides to destroy the Earth. And Dort eventually meets a woman. He meets a suffragette who's fighting for women's rights, and he gets the minions to help him in the fight for women's rights. And he ends up falling in love with the suffragette named Debbie. And spoiler alert, doesn't fucking matter. At the end of it, you find out they have kids. And one of the kids kind of looks like Dort, but the other one, who's a baby, is literally just a cell phone. He's like a cell phone wrapped in a baby blanket. And that got the hardest laugh out of me the whole movie. Just seeing, Dort's two kids with Debbie, I thought that was so fucking funny. So meanwhile, back in the A plot, the minions come back to the studio. Henry figures out what's going on, but he gets captured by Howard and Philip. Howard and Philip, like, one of them's like a giant sea monster, the other's like a kraken. They do fucking nothing in this movie. Again, the monsters only show up like 50 minutes in to a 90-minute movie. They're not in this movie that long. And they don't Cthulhu does a few things, and Eileen, who we'll talk about in a second, does a lot. But Howard and Philip do almost nothing. Like, Philip eats a few people, and that's basically it. Like, I was kind of hoping for more monsters and a movie called Minions vs. Monsters. And instead, it's more a movie about Hollywood. But so eventually they start filming their movie, and Gooby the Cthulhu is like, hey, another monster who would love to be in your movie? Eileen. And Eileen is one of those, the blob that ate everything, and she's covered with a bunch of eyes. So they summon her, she eats Henry, And meanwhile, James goes in to save her. Ed is just filming the whole thing. Like, Ed is in the background filming a bunch of stuff. The US military tries to attack Eileen, and they get defeated. Dort goes to fight back, but he's scared and runs away. The minions get a bunch of tanks and whatnot. They steal the military's tanks, and they try to fight Eileen, but they end up losing. James eventually saves Henry, and then right as all hope is lost and they're all about to die, Dort comes in on his stupid fucking spaceship. A bunch of the minions have their own little spaceships. They defeat Eileen. James puts Gooby back in the book, and then they get to premiere their big movie, because like I said, Ed was filming everything the whole time. So they were able to make a movie out of everything, and it's all's well that ends well. Everybody sees the movie, they love it. James gets his award, and yeah, the movie ends on a happy note, to then cut back to, you know, the present, where we see where we find out that the whole bit with the humans learning about the history of film was actually just being filmed by them. It's a movie within a movie. It doesn't go as meta as I would like, but it's a little meta, so I give them a little credit. And then that's where the movie ends. Gru does show up in the post-credits, because there's a whole credit sequence where the minions from the first two Minions movies get the magic spell book, and they pull a bunch of little pranks, you know, they remove all of Gru's clothes, they make a pig Gru, they summon the giant killer rabbit from the beginning of the movie. It's kind of whatever. And yeah, I would say this movie's okay. Honestly, well, I definitely think the other Pixar movies we've had this year, Hoppers, Toy Story 5, are better. This is technically better than the Mario movie. It is kind of a dumb fun movie, but it at least is more cohesive than the Mario movie. Like, yeah, James, Henry, and Ed don't really have massive arcs, but they do kind of have arcs. You know, they have goals they want to achieve, they face obstacles along the way, and in the end, they persevere and are able to achieve their dreams. Like, it's not anything like revolutionary, but that's also more than what's in the Mario movie, for Christ's sake. So yeah, like, this is technically better than the Mario movie, which is fucking crazy. Because, you know, when Nintendo works with other gaming studios, they keep those gaming studios on a leash and usually make some great games. Like when Nintendo teamed up with the Ubisoft to make Mario plus Rabbids, they made a fucking great game. Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle is fantastic. Sequel's also pretty good, not as good, but still pretty good. So you would think with Nintendo working with Illumination, they would fucking knock it out of the park. And no, Nintendo clearly just didn't give a shit, and Illumination never gives a shit. So as a result, the Mario movie's not that good. Meanwhile, for just some third Minions movie, Illumination just slapped some shit together and made maybe their best movie ever. Like, what the fuck? Like, Nintendo, you're supposed to hold these people on a leash to make something good. And you didn't give a shit, and look at the movie. Sure, it made $1 billion. This Minion movie's probably gonna make $1 billion. But like, what the fuck? Nintendo needs to, you know, get their shit together. God, I'm so worried about the Zelda movie. So another thing I will say about this movie that I did definitely notice is, you know, most Illumination movies are filled with licensed music. You know, whether you got Pharrell Williams doing the score or somebody else, you know, you have all this licensed music. The first Mario movie, filled with licensed music. The second one didn't have as much. This movie, no licensed music whatsoever. Instead, because it's a big tribute to Hollywood, it has an orchestral score. And yeah, I kind of liked that. I kind of respected that. Yeah, they put a lot of emphasis on sound design in this movie and how important sound is for movies, which again, it normally wouldn't be that big of a deal, but this is fucking Illumination we're talking about. Another thing I really liked, so I talked about how, you know, this movie talks about women's suffrage because it takes place in the 20s. It also doesn't directly address it, but there are a lot of background shots with a lot of people of color, especially African Americans, which I read that as the movie highlighting the importance of African Americans in early film, which is a real thing that very much goes unsung. A lot of African Americans do not get their credit for how important they are in early Hollywood. And this movie actually, like, it never says it specifically, but it does definitely be like, yeah, you know, they are important. Like, the first shot, one of the first shots in this movie is the first ever piece of film, which is the zoetrope of the guy riding the horse. And yeah, that is important, and that's a black man. I don't know, it's just something I noticed. That I know some people will say it's just DEI, but I'd like to think there was more intention going on there. Yeah, Minions versus Monster, or Minions and Monsters. It is probably the best Minions movie since Despicable Me. And it really shouldn't be. But it kind of is, and I'm kind of really surprised. I don't want to say I'm impressed. I would more definitely say I'm surprised by it all. But yeah, they pulled it off. Again, there are other things I would say to go watch before this. God, Supergirl's bombing at the box office. Please go watch Supergirl before this. Like, I understand if you have kids, but please go see Supergirl. I don't want that. That movie's nothing amazing, but I don't want it to bomb either. Meanwhile, this thing's safely gonna make, you know, $1 billion. Toy Story 5 has already made like $600 million. But yeah, Toy Story is definitely better. You know, if you need something to take your kids to over 4th of July weekend, Toy Story 4 is definitely the better one, or Toy Story 5. But this is not terrible. I definitely feel like this is going to be less popular with audiences. That part of the reason why this movie is doing so well is because, at least with critics, like I said, it's a movie about Hollywood. I feel like audiences that don't know the history of Hollywood and whatnot are not going to appreciate it as much, but I did. You know, as someone who does, I definitely saw a lot of the love put into this. I don't want to say impressed, but I mean, I guess I was for an Illumination film of all things. God, Nintendo just needs to get their shit together. Because this shows that Illumination can make decent movies. If anything, is this Nintendo's fault? Is Nintendo the problem? God. And usually I would say the opposite is true. Fucking, what are you gonna do? We're getting another Mario. We're getting a Donkey Kong. They're making theme parks. Nothing's changed. The Universal, I don't know if you saw videos of that new Universal Children's theme park. It's fucking awful. Oh my god. I saw that video of the Shrek ride. Oh my god. It's so bad. So yeah, I think that's it. We still have some more. I don't know how many levels we have left. We'll play a little bit more of King of Cards. Why not? I'll think of something else to talk about. So like I mentioned earlier, I kind of want to play the original Splatoon again. It's been a long time, but in order to do that, I'm going to have to go get the WiiU out of storage. Which, if I'm getting the WiiU out of storage, should I also just replay Wind Waker and Twilight Princess? Because here's the thing. There have been rumors for years now that Nintendo took the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess Wii U ports and put them on Switch, and we're just kind of waiting for a rainy day to release them. And clearly that rainy day never came. But I also am kind of worried that the moment I decide, hey, I'm going to play Wind Waker and Twilight Princess on Wii U, the next day they're gonna announce, hey, guess what? Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are now available on Switch. And that's gonna fucking suck. Because you know when that happened? With Mario Galaxy. Specifically Mario Galaxy 2. I decided I was gonna replay Mario Galaxy. And then like a month later, they announced, hey guys, guess what? Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 collection available on Switch 2 starting in August. And it was like, fuck. Because the Wii version just, it wasn't bad, but I don't like the Wiimote. And the reason why I'm so worried with the Wii U is my Wii U gamepad has stick drift. And there's nothing you can do to fix that. You can't open up a Wii U gamepad and replace the sticks. That's just not how that system works. And you can't really get a replacement gamepad either. Like, who the fuck sells replacement gamepads? Even if I were to just buy a standalone gamepad, I don't even think it would work on my Switch. I think I'd have to get, or my Wii U, I mean. I think I'd have to get something entirely new. You know, I'd have to get a full new system. Which, knowing how the resale market is nowadays, it's actually probably expensive. If the 3DS is anything to go by. Because I don't know if you've checked 3DS prices in a while. Getting a new 3DS, any version, fucking expensive. It is basically as expensive to buy a 3DS used today as it is to buy a new one when it came out originally. That fucking sucks. You know, I talk about the importance of physical media, but collectors have made getting old physical media so fucking expensive. The collector's market fucking sucks. And I kinda hate it, but like, what am I gonna do? I don't even have enough. So yeah, I don't know. But I definitely thought about it. And same thing with Star Fox Zero. Like, I know the new Star Fox game came out. I do need to play it. But also, you know, if I'm getting the Wii U out, I might as well give Star Fox Zero another playthrough. Because that's like the last time I'm ever gonna play it. Probably anyways. So I might as well just say fuck it and do that as well. I don't know. That would be a problem for, I would say, next week's me. But next week we're playing Splatoon 3 for the Splatfest. And then after that we're doing King of Cards, which we've been playing for about an hour, and I'm not even done with the first boss yet. We got like 7 hours left in this game. This is gonna take a while. So we legitimately might be playing King of Cards through July. Like through the end of the month. So we may not get to Splatoon until August. It's a very real possibility. I don't know, I'm not writing anything off yet. Anything else? God. Rhythm Heaven came out. Overall, I think it's gotten pretty solid reviews. I think it's sitting at like an 85 on OpenCritic. Oh no, I can look it up right now. Sitting at an 83 on OpenCritic. That's still pretty good review-wise. I know the guys over at Kinda Funny did not like it. Like, they did not vibe with Rhythm Heaven. But I probably won't either, but I still gotta play through it. I did buy it. You know, it was only $40. I already promised I was gonna buy it anyways, so you better believe I did. I have not played it. I've been busy. But I'll get around to it. I will. Yeah. Anything else? Did I... You know what? Fuck it. Let's... So... Oh god. I gotta write this down somewhere. Just give me a second. So we recently got the news that the Dragon Striker Disney show is getting a second season. Now, I have watched the full first season, and it kind of ends at a place that only feels like a halfway point for a season one. So there is a part of me that hopes we're not actually done with season 1 yet, and later this year, maybe in like, you know, September, we'll get more season 1. Like if you told, because right now it's only 11 episodes, which I've never heard of an 11 episode order. A 22 episode order, sure, I've heard of that. 24 is more likely, but yeah. So I think we're only halfway through season 1, and definitely, but though it does seem like we're getting season 2, and that's more exciting. This Dragon Striker show, if you have not watched this, it's being promoted by Disney. It's on Disney Plus. It's really good. I've seen people compare it to Avatar, which, hey, if you're watching that new Avatar Netflix show, it ain't worth it. This, however, a little bit closer to worth it. So this show is all about a kid who grows up in this fantasy land where people have magic. But they don't use their magic to, you know, wage war or whatnot. They instead use it to play soccer. You know, the World Cup's going on right now. This is perfect timing for this. And so, yeah, the kids use it to play soccer, and they have, you know, magical powers. So, like, the main guy has fire powers. And he's able to, you know, use his fire powers. He's got a whole firepower mode, because he's got, like, the fire dragon inside of him. There's another kid who's got, like, a shadow dragon inside of him, who's, like, basically the Zuko right now, even though I don't know if his kid's gonna get a redemption. There's a girl who has time powers, and she's the goalie. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that makes sense. You know, she's able to slow down time, which makes it easier for her to catch the ball. There's a guy who creates jelly, which doesn't seem like it would be useful, but you know, they find their practical applications for it here and there. There's a guy who's able to duplicate himself. And then there's a girl who's able to eat other people's powers. And, like, she doesn't steal them. It's just, like, as long as her mouth is closed, she's able to take your powers away. You know, it's kind of like Eraserhead in My Hero Academia, where as long as he doesn't blink, he can steal your power. You know, he can freeze your powers. It's kind of the same idea. The girl, I do not like. Like, she's very clearly from, like, a foreign land. Nobody understands her. She doesn't talk that much either. I just don't, like, there's definitely something going on with the nerd girl. She's constantly reading books, and I just don't really have a good grasp on her character, like, at all. It's not that it's bad, it's just, it's weird, and I'm waiting to see more from her. Because there's this whole episode where she gets accused of stealing another kid's powers, and they like the teachers try to like hunt her down, and when they eventually get to her, they find out that no, she can't like permanently steal someone's powers, and she must be innocent. Meanwhile, the guy, our main character, Key, his big problem is that he can't control his powers. You know, he's got this dragon fire burning inside of him, but it's burning too hot, and he can't control it, and it potentially, you know, could injure his classmates. His mother, who is dead, she also had a power, and she struggled to control it. And at one point, they're like, oh, your mother used her powers to save everybody. But then in the season 1 finale, mid-finale, whatever you call it, one of the guys hints that no, she didn't stop them with her power. She was the threat that almost killed them. Like, she didn't save them from the threat. She was the threat. And the only reason they survived was because, you know, in theory, she killed herself. Or something like that. I don't know. It's interesting. The series finale is not like a series finale you'd expect, especially from a Disney show. There are things that happen where I was like, holy shit, that's where you're gonna end it? There's a lot of other things that happen in the show. They create their own, like, league. Yeah, they create their own, like... Because there's, like, the big tournament, the Knight's Helm tournament. And there's a plant team, a dragon team, a bard team, and I don't remember what the other one is. But they create their own team, which is, like, a knight team. And some of the professors don't like him because of his mother. But then others are like, no, the knight's team is cursed. You can't trust them. So that definitely has its own implications that I'm very curious about. The animation is fantastic. It's very clearly anime inspired. Again, it kind of reminds me of something like My Hero Academia, but it looks very good. You have some beautiful vistas, just as you see the world and everything going on in it. I was impressed with it. I really enjoyed it. I finished it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then we just kept forgetting to talk about it, or I kept getting distracted by other things. But yeah, it is so worth your time. Again, it gives off Avatar vibes. It's definitely not as like serious as Avatar, even though people do lose their powers and people do definitely like bite the bullet. It is different vibes at the end of the day. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I know the other one I need to watch is it called Doomies? So I don't know if you'd heard about this, but yeah, Disney just dropped a whole show on Disney Plus called The Doomies, which is all about these kids who, I'll be honest, I don't even know much about it. I just know, hey, people see it, they're excited for it. So far, what I've seen looks fine. But yeah, I just kind of gotta get around to it eventually. Yeah, it sucks that it's been a few weeks since I've seen Dragon Strikers, so like I don't have all the details fresh in my memory. But overall, I was pretty impressed with it. It was good. Not as good as some other things. Okay, it's no Avatar yet, but it could be. That's the thing. It could be the next Avatar. If they really tried, I do think they're going to get there. And I want them to. I genuinely want them to succeed. I'm glad we already got renewed for a next season. I do worry because right now there seems to be a very common trend where a lot of shows, you know, they have their first season, they're successful, and then when the second season comes out, if they even get a second season, I mean, we just found out Ponies is being canceled, which sucks. But yeah, if they do even get a second season, the second season just sees a massive drop-off. Like, that's Percy Jackson. Percy Jackson's first season, definitely different than the books, but I did enjoy it. Second season, again, has some changes, but overall, I did enjoy it. However, general audiences did not vibe with it. And, like, it saw a massive loss in viewership. And while we're getting a third season because they already filmed it, and it's coming out probably in December, that's probably it. We're probably not getting a season 4 or 5. And that fucking sucks. Probably. I don't know. I'm just lucky My Adventures with Superman is still going. Like, somehow out of all these shows, that's the one that, yeah, every week I see people talking about. Clearly, all they had to do was make it Moe, and everyone was like, oh, that's cool. I guess we'll just keep watching it and talking about it. Because it is really fucking good. You know, you see how much comic books are trying to rip off manga. How successful manga is, how comics are failing, which they are, by the way. And then you have My Adventures with Superman being just like, let's just do anime. And they're fucking nailing it, and people are loving it. At least everyone I've talked to seems to love it. Speaking of DC Comics, here's another one. I only just started it, so I don't really have much to say on it. But, so, right, Pride Month was June, and DC Comics, for Pride Month, did this giant event called Dream Girls, which was the two characters, Dreamer and Galaxy, become basically the head of the Justice League. And yeah, it's a big Pride event, seems like a lot of fun. Haven't actually read it, but it did remind me, like, you know, I need to go back to Galaxy. So Galaxy was a DC comic from years and years ago, but it featured a trans main character. And I was like, fuck, because I picked it up, and then I just, you know, I got distracted by other things, and I never actually read it. And since I was in my comic collection for Supergirl, which I also have not reread that either. But since I was there, Galaxy is like right down the line, basically the same shelf. And I was like, you know what, fuck it, let me pick up Galaxy again. Maybe I'll actually check out this new Dream Girl event. And so I picked up Galaxy, I started reading it. Let me see, where am I at? I'm only 64 pages in, so I haven't read too much of it. But I started it, and you know what? So far, I like it. It's... again, I've started it before, and then I just got sidetracked by so many things. But so far, I do find it interesting, because it is, very clearly a trans metaphor, but also it kind of isn't, because she's always been a she, at least at the point I'm reading. Maybe that will be revealed to be different later on, but I am glad I'm finally reading it. I literally only started on like the 30th. It was like the last minute thing, and then I've been sidetracked with so many things this week, but I've been enjoying it so far. I feel like the setup is very interesting. They're aliens from another world who are hiding out on Earth. And so the main character, in order to hide her, they have her disguised as a boy. But obviously, she's not a boy, so she feels wrong. And that's interesting. That is so interesting. Again, even if the metaphor so far is a little shaky, I see the metaphor. And I think it's interesting. The way she interacts with... It kind of reminds me... Okay, there used to be a show called Symbionic Titan that kind of had a similar setup. And I fucking loved that show. It was about aliens on the run from someone coming after them. And admittedly, that one leaned more into giant robots. But it was still very good. And yeah, I definitely... I need to find the time to finish it. But I will definitely finish it. But yeah, I plucked it out with Supergirl, and I know I should have read Supergirl, but it caught my eye, and I was like, yeah, God, I do need to read that. I don't know, there's so many things I need to read. God, I didn't even talk about the Someday Garden. I don't think we will. I know in the past we talked about a book called The 7-Year Slip, which is a really good romance book. I'd honestly, I'm a guy, so I've got my own judges of romance. But I like the 7-Year Slip. I thought it was real interesting. Someday Garden is, it has similar conceits. Like the 7-Year Slip plays around with time, where the main woman, Clementine, is in the present, but the guy is 7 years in the past. This one, it's the opposite. The guy is in the present, and she's a few months in the past. And waiting until the day that the past catches up to the present for him, so that way the two can finally meet in the Someday Garden. And that's kind of all I'm going to say about it. It is spicy. It does have a spicy scene. Not as spicy as some other books. Like, this ain't fucking Fourth Wing. But it's got a little bit of spice, and I don't mind that. It's okay. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that should just take us to our conclusion. We'll continue on with this next week. So what is coming up in the future? Well, obviously we're going to keep working on King of Cards. That's an obvious thing that we're going to have to keep working on. There's still a lot to do here with King of Cards, where I would argue we're not even a third of the way through the game. I know we just beat one of the major bosses, but I would argue, yeah, we're not even a third of the way through. So we'll continue with that another time. So that's the first big thing. The second big thing is there's a Splatfest next week. We will probably sit down and play some Splatoon. It's been a while, but not too... I mean, we did Big Run, like 2 weeks ago? So it hasn't been too long, but I think we'll do that. We're obviously... The news is going to suck next week. Originally I thought about calling this episode Nothing Good, but next week is probably also going to be called that, Nothing Good, because the Xbox layoffs are going to be awful. I have been doing this show for 8 years now. In that 8 years, the common trends you see is that January and July are usually dead months. I guess late December through January. Usually that period from E3/Summer Games Fest to Gamescom opening night live, nothing fucking happens. Like, there'll be a story or two, but nothing major. And yet this year, that post E3 period has been so fucking active. And it's all just been terrible, awful, no good, very bad news. And it's just gonna keep going like that. And that fucking sucks. And that's why, here at the What I've Been Enjoying podcast, well, yes, we do talk about all that bad news. I will always stop and take a moment to remember what I've been enjoying. So with that, we're going to end off. I hope you all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.